Chapter 7. Help Wanted. I was merely a kid, but I accepted my role and became a business owner at only 8 years old. Frank looked beyond his front porch and searched for a job. While walking on his journey, he had flashbacks of when he and his mother would walk for miles to stand in line at food banks. The memories of Mother Carrie having to physically walk to simply feed him fueled his drive to continue marching. He knew his mother was in need of help and his sisters were in need of someone to look up to. When a child simply yearns to make a difference for their family, they are preparing to initiate what it takes to complete the mission. Yearning is a side effect of finding a purpose, and acting upon it comes with acceptance. When you finally find a purpose, the obstacles along the trail to achieve it can seem frightening, almost like Mission Impossible. You'll stumble across a purpose when you yearn to make a difference for your family, but that purpose cannot be brought to reality without acceptance. Knowing your role and accepting your role are two totally different things. One cannot exist without the other. You'll get glimpses of what you have the potential to do, but until you fully accept that role, those visions will remain on the outskirts of reality. When you get a clear perspective of your role, sometimes it can be so overwhelming that you start to second-guess yourself. This doesn't mean you lack the skills and ability to play the part. It's simply a side effect from growing up in an environment where poverty existed either physically or mentally in your family. Finding a purpose for yourself is like finding the key to a treasure chest. The poverty-driven atmosphere around you sometimes alters your thoughts and makes you think you are not the chosen one. But nothing in this world is a coincidence. Poverty forces you to experience life without elements that are essential to your growth. This lack has the power to create scotomas where you could have gotten access to better perspectives on life. Poverty places an invisible cloak on the blessings scattered around your environment. But when you finally accept your role, everything you have the potential to change will be unveiled before your eyes. Frank spotted his first blessing when he noticed a Help Wanted sign in the window of a local grocery store. He walked in with his confidence on his sleeve and humbly asked the first person he saw about the Help Wanted sign in the window. The individual he spoke with was a man named Mr. George, who was the owner and operator of the grocery store. Mr. George asked,
"Isn't it a little early for you to be looking for a job, son?"
The young Frank Williams responded by sharing his circumstances and his mission to help his mother put food on the table for their family. Mr. George interviewed Frank on the spot and realized that he was interviewing a young business owner like himself. Frank had 3 characteristics that glaringly stuck out to Mr. George: transparency, credibility, and integrity. The transparency in Frank's reason for finding a job allowed Mr. George to see the world from his perspective. Through the windows of his eyes were images of his mother with a smile on her face. He knew if he got a job, she would finally get to take a breather for once. Mr. George saw himself through the transparency of Frank's character, an ambitious individual on the hunt to bring food home for his family. Mr. George was so impressed to see a young individual yearning to make a difference and taking the road less traveled along the way. Mr. George knew if he answered his battle cry, he would not only be helping Frank, but he would also be lending a helping hand to a generation he wouldn't live long enough to see. Through the transparency of Frank's character, generations of ambitious individuals will grow from the seed Mr. George planted that day. Mr. George gave young Frank a job at his grocery store. He would sweep and bag groceries while on the clock. Mr. George didn't just give him a job, but an opportunity to change the images he had been seeing throughout his childhood. He could have easily gravitated towards the wrong narrative in the streets if he continued his search. When disoriented children run away from home, they are eventually kidnapped by the uncertainty of their own lives. At 8 years old, Frank ran away from home every single day, but he ran away so he could bring something back. Regardless of how much he loved his family, he understood that in order to make a difference for his family, he had to gain the courage to lose sight of them. The action of bringing food back home was the sharpest purpose Frank saw for his life as a child, and it started to carve his character into existence. Although Frank was her older brother, Belinda saw him as the father figure she never had. He was the only male she could look up to and protected her from the ills of the world. He taught her at an early age that if she wants something in life, she's not entitled to it, and she would have to work extremely hard for it. When Belinda saw her brother bring food home, she accepted an identification of what a man is supposed to do for his family. So she planned to look for that type of man in the future. Frank didn't go straight home after school. When school ended in the evening, he went to work and came home later at night. Mr. George had given Frank a new breath of life. He was feeding his mind with a purpose when Frank once couldn't identify his circumstances. This was the moment he realized his family lacked the roadmap to their legacy. Frank made it his responsibility to initiate the war against his personal poverty to one day change the dynamics of his family tree. This assignment came early, but he was too young to identify the longevity of initiating this fight. He didn't identify it in the flesh or spirit, only in the physical world. However, all three identifications must be in sync in order to survive this war.
Do you have more than one Mr. George? They gave your children an opportunity too, because they reached out a helping hand through you.